Hello, this is Mariah Cruz, and you're listening to the Spiritual Deep Dives podcast. What if the legendary epic of Rama and the Ramayana is more than just mythology? What if it reveals how divine avatars descended into the physical world to confront incarnate evil? In this episode, we're going to shed light on this ancient Sanskrit epic from India and its uncanny parallels to biblical accounts. For thousands of years, there were ancient spiritual truths and mystical teachings passed down only to the highest initiates walking the path back to God. It hasn't been until recent times that this secret knowledge has been available to the masses. Our team spent over 40 years researching many diverse spiritual, religious, and scientific sources, recording the wisdom from the ascended saints and sages of East and West, tapping into the Akashic records, and calling on God's Holy Spirit to reveal the spiritual truths and science behind the unseen forces that govern our lives. In this podcast, we will explore these teachings from a unique perspective that you probably have never heard before, and show practical ways you can integrate them into your life to resolve deep-seated personal problems, accelerate your soul's evolution, and help solve the world's dilemmas. So let's continue this historical odyssey on fallen angels, Nephilim, and aliens. A quick note before we begin. If you're joining us for the first time, because of the sequential nature of this series, we recommend listening to the previous episodes before beginning this one. In the last episode, we began the discussion about the coming of the avatar Rama and the Ramayana. This is an important event in India, with grandparents talking to their grandchildren about Diwali, known as the Festival of Lights, which signifies the return of the great Rama and Sita, his twin flame, after the victorious defeat of Ravana. Before we dig into this epic, we want to define what an avatar is by way of drawing parallels to how they manifest into embodiment compared to how they're used in game environments. A lot of people have avatars in games. They create an electronic representation of themselves that they send into unreality, the game environment. Yet you are in control of your avatar and can withdraw from that unreality any time. You're the one in charge. You're the one behind that projected avatar that exists in the fantasy game world. You work and live in that unreality, but it's not really you. It only represents you. Although this may be an unconventional explanation, it does illustrate how some avatars do appear on Earth. And, according to the Ascended Masters, an avatar has 93 or 94% of their karma balanced and must take on 6 to 7% of world karma to stay in embodiment. When we talk about Rama here, we're talking about the 7th incarnation or projection of Vishnu, a highly advanced spiritual being, into human form to perform a certain mission on behalf of Earth's evolutions. But this was not a game. He came to face off with absolute evil. So we're going back to 5000 BC for this story. Rama contended against the evil Ravana, also known as Ravana. As mentioned before, for this story we will be referring to the Ramayana, which means Rama's journey. This journey is an epic situation where Rama has this incredible adventure lasting over 14 years. If you ever have a chance to see the movie, it's quite the experience. So both Rama and Sita, his twin flame, came into incarnation. Why are they confronting Ravana? Well, he is considered to be a demon in the flesh. He's not in hell or in some other realm. These beings are sometimes called Asuras, Asuras, or Rakshasas, Rakshasas. Since this series is about the fallen angels, the question we are answering is, where are they? We've established that they are in physical embodiment and have been here for millions of years. So this fallen angel is on the earth. We want to note that in the Hindu tradition, they are not referred to as fallen angels. According to the story, Ravana is the king of Lanka, Sri Lanka, and he abducted Rama's wife, Sita. Now, getting back to the Asuras, which is what Ravana is called, These go all the way back to the Rig Veda. Now try to keep up with us here because this is going to start getting a little complicated. In the Vedas, all divine beings are called either Devas or Asuras interchangeably. Later on in the Rig Veda, this correlation changes. The Sanskrit root of asu in the word Asura means breath. So in the Vedas, Prajapati, the lord of progeny, creates the Suras. They're not bad. Both gods, Agni and Indra, are also called Suras. In the Vedic period, the name Asura did not necessarily have a bad connotation. Now the Vedic period goes very far back, way beyond Rama, which was 7,000 years ago. We're looking at 10,000 years and beyond that, even before the Vedas were written. But in the later Hindu scriptures, the Asuras are seen battling the gods. At that point, they're considered the enemies of the gods. So when we get to the Ramayana, Ravana is called a Rakshasa, or a demon. But also confusing, some Rakshasas are good. For example, Ravana's brother is good. He eventually inherited the kingship of Sri Lanka. So we can already see there's a parallel to our Western scriptures. Some of them are good Asuras. Some go through a change or situation very similar to what we said earlier, where Lucifer was an angel of tremendous light and attainment. Later on, he got into trouble and went through the fall. You can see the same thing happening here. A Hindu reading the Ramayana might very well be talking about Lucifer, who turned into an evil Rakshasa or Asura. There's a definite parallel here. Another disgusting parallel we see is that these Rakshasas eat human flesh, which is mentioned in the biblical book of Numbers. It's the same history. These comparisons never go away. No matter where you look in the major religions, there's always some kind of fall that brings an evolution down to an extreme low state, and they engage in rituals that are quite barbaric. It's interesting that in the Hindu scriptures, the only thing that distinguishes the Asuras who become Devas from those who remain Asuras is really the motive, the action, or the intent. So when they're in embodiment, we cannot tell who is who, and therefore can't make a judgment. We can't assume anything. But if we look at their motive, sometimes it appears to be one thing, but the end game is something else altogether. There are certain keys to look for. This is an important point to remember. So why did Rama incarnate? To destroy Ravana. You have to realize the power of the evil in Ravana. For an avatar to specifically take embodiment just to destroy Ravana, his sons, and to clear Sri Lanka of this evil force, he must have been an extremely dangerous fallen one. He literally had to be removed from Earth in that round and cycle. To do that, there needed to be someone of equal or greater attainment than the enemy. In order to get rid of someone at that level, we need an avatar such as Lord Rama, especially since these beings always come with their minions and lower echelons of lesser attainment to support them. But to take on the main figure, an avatar is required. Now, here's another interesting observation. Ravana was very devoted to Brahma. He received a boon from Brahma because of his devotion and penances. He was also very devoted to Shiva. So we find that some Asuras, or demons, believe in God or the gods, while others do not. Again, we see a parallel, the great devotion that Lucifer and his angels once had to the spiritual hierarchy. Ravana was there, and then he was gone. It seems as though Ravana, who was on earth just as Lucifer was cast down to, tried to worship the gods. Sometimes these devotions are given by fallen ones in hopes of gaining good karma. The question is, what was their motive? What was their intent? We find throughout history that this is the modus operandi with some of these fallen ones in embodiment. They sometimes spend 1, 2, 3, or more embodiments doing good by performing works of light so that they can incur some good karma. This was even depicted in one of the movies of the Ramayana. He did, however, have a problem with Vishnu. He had a problem with the universal mind, the universal Christ, the preserver which Vishnu represents. Now, because of the impersonal law of karma, there was a return current of light from the Godhead, but Ravana still took the energy he gained and used it for evil. After all this devotion to Shiva, Ravana came back again with his hatred for Rama. He continued to hold Rama's wife, Sita, in his palace. What's interesting is he had no problem with the first person of the Trinity, Brahma. He had no problem with Shiva, who represents the Holy Spirit. He did, however, have a problem with Vishnu. He had a problem with the universal mind, the universal Christ, the preserver which Vishnu represents. This is yet another parallel because the fallen angels hated Jesus with a passion. He represented the Son, the second person of the Trinity. This also happens to be what the incarnation of Rama represented. Both Rama and Jesus represented the same office in hierarchy, and both of these representations were attacked by the incarnate evil of that day. There's no reason why we shouldn't say that Jesus represented Vishnu. He certainly did. It's interchangeable depending on your viewpoint. So we'll say that Jesus was an incarnation of Vishnu, as was Krishna, as was Rama. Anyone who represents that middle figure of the chart of your divine self that we described in episode 1 fits this pattern. According to the story, we know that Rama eventually destroyed Ravana and his sons. Sita was rescued and finally brought back to the palace of Rama in Ayodhya. That return is what the Ramayana is all about. It's why they celebrate the Festival of Lights. Unfortunately, this story is used by some to try and prove that Rama, Ravana, and the entire epic had something to do with aliens or beings from another planet. We know that the show Ancient Aliens depicted this. It's a very good show, but they always turn Lord Rama, Sita, and Ravana into aliens because of the flying machines they used. These were known as vimanas. The vimana was a chariot. It's a Sanskrit word meaning flying machine or flying device. There is tremendous detail on how the vimanas worked. Some were powered by magnetic mercury in a vortex as part of their propulsion system. Some were moved by the mind of the avatar itself. Ravana had that power. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata are full of stories of battles in the sky, which are fascinating. Some people interpret the vimana as chariot, which brings to mind the Roman chariots which were pulled by horses, but the texts contain detailed explanations, literally pages and even full books describing the vimanas, how they worked, their propulsion systems, how they moved up, down, sideways, and the speeds at which they travelled. Some even flew at supersonic speeds. Knowing about the flying machines reportedly on Atlantis, one may wonder if, when you push the date back a little bit, this would almost coincide with the time of the sinking of Atlantis, around 9,500 BC. It could be that they were using technology known from Atlantis, spread across the area of India. That's one possibility. We're not saying that the Ascended Masters taught that the Vimanas came from Atlantis, but the parallels are striking. What we do want to emphasize is Rama and Sita are not aliens from other planets, and neither is Ravana. That's an important point. They were adepts in their own right. Ravana was as much an adept as Rama, but he could not overcome Rama because the power of the godhead that Rama had behind him was greater than the power Ravana possessed. And of course, we also know that very advanced weapons were used. The so-called arrows are not ordinary arrows. That's another element that may lead people to think this was alien technology, but it doesn't have to be. Where did Rama receive these weapons? From Brahma, Vishnu, and others. The same thing happened on Atlantis. They had technology so far beyond what we can conceive of today. Even in the latter period, it was astounding, and if you go further back during that time, the technology was even more advanced. So we're going to end this story and move to another, the story of the great avatar Krishna, which takes us now to 3000 BC. Once again, we have a contention between good and evil, of Krishna against King Kansa. Kansa was a cousin of Krishna's mother, Devaki. When Kansa learned, according to a prophecy, that a son born to Devaki would slay him, he attempted to have all her children killed. Why are we not surprised? Krishna, the eighth son, was then taken by his parents and fled. Does this remind you of Jesus' flight into Egypt? So typical of King Kansa, he then ordered the destruction of all the male children. Does this also sound familiar? Perhaps King Kansa later reincarnated as King Herod, who attempted to slaughter the avatar Jesus, but this is only speculation. The Ascended Masters haven't talked about this, but sometimes you see the same modus operandi. It doesn't have to be the same person, but the same pattern seems to reoccur. So all that we have discussed in the last several episodes goes all the way back to the original rebellion, which stated, "I hate the Christ in man. I will destroy that Christ, and I will not give obeisance to that Christ." So again, King Kansa is called an Asura, and in this context he is definitely a malevolent being. Kansa pursued Krishna, but at last Krishna slew him. This story of Krishna is told in detail in the Vishnu Purana. As mentioned, it's always the same story. Once you understand their MO, you can predict what they will probably do in a given situation, and both the good and the bad sides know this. The fallen ones know that there is the problem of incarnating avatars and the sons of light on the planet. They are constantly plotting. What are we going to do 100, 200, 1,000 years from now? If they make this move, we have to do that. It's really a gigantic, cosmic 4D chess game. It's a chess game, but it's also a great drama, a point and counterpoint. That's why the avatar is like a player in a game, even if the game looks unreal. But these things are very real. There is war on the planet, there are cataclysms and horrible events, but if we can pull ourselves back just a little bit and realize, I'm watching the outplaying of events, don't you think that's helpful? It prevents you from engaging too much in all the turmoil. Everything we've been talking about and everything happening in the world today is extremely disconcerting to many people. But if we step back and remain objective, we'll realize this is actually Maya. It's an illusion. It's a magical display. Yes, we still need to do our spiritual work, our meditations, our prayers and dynamic decrees. But in the final analysis, what we're witnessing is not actually real with a capital R. The key is not engaging with it or the fallen ones, not getting angry at the things they do, even though it's extremely difficult to do. There's a vibration of righteous indignation that we can hold, but we must be aware of it within ourselves. When we begin to feel anger, we should pull back and realize that their time is almost up. They're playing their last hand in the game. They have nothing left. It has to do with the equilibrium of the heart. According to the Ascended Masters, when dealing with such situations, we must always stay centered in the heart chakra and the threefold flame, as we've spoken of before. So the Ramayana is a wonderful story. If you get a chance to see the movie, we would recommend it. There is also a lot of information in the Vishnu Purana, which we were just discussing. Now let's go back over to the West. Remember, what we're trying to show is that there are two types of evolutions, two types of people on Earth. We've talked about Jesus' parable of the tares and the wheat in the last episode, but Jesus, as we know, studied the scriptures of the various Essene communities. There were many Essene groups, including the one at Qumran. These scriptures are now called the Dead Sea Scrolls. These scrolls are full of references to evil ones. They describe the characteristics of the children of righteousness and the children of perversity. Quoting now from the complete Dead Sea Scrolls in English, "Those born of truth spring from a fountain of light, but those born of perversity spring from a source of darkness. All the children of righteousness are ruled by the Prince of Light, but all of the children of perversity are ruled by the angel of darkness and walk in the ways of darkness." Once again, we see how clear this is. Just as in the last episode when Jesus said, "You are of your father the devil, and the works of your father you will do." It's hard to misinterpret that, and yet somebody is misinterpreting it. Some don't want this information out, so they skip over it, they cover it up. We have even seen so-called expert commentators say, the children of perversity are simply the people who are not Essenes. That is, those who don't agree with their way of life, which they were trying to preserve all the way back to Moses and so forth. So therefore, according to them, the children of perversity must be referring to the Romans, or the various other so-called barbarians, and perhaps to the numerous other faiths and the alleged pagan religions. And of course, at this time, many of these religions were actually worshipping the fallen angels who were called gods. Some of that is actually true, but this is how they got away with covering over the entire truth. These writings also state something interesting. The two characteristics we are talking about, righteousness and perversity, are found intertwined in almost all people until the tares, the weeds, and the wheat are separated at the end of the period of judgment which Jesus calls the harvest. That's what we want to address, the subject of the intertwining. It's an interesting point because even though we may be someone who has light, who has the divine spark and always has, we've been covering a time period of tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years. And during that time living on this planet, there have been intermarriages. There has been the mixing of the seed of the light bearers with the seed of those who have absolutely no light. When that happens, if you take the seed of light and mix it with the seed of darkness, you have in a sense entrapped that seed of light until it works itself out through karmic conditions. It has to outplay because this is how karma is transmitted. It is transmitted through DNA, through the genetic code. So when we look at the genetic code of any individual, there could be latent karma there. That's what some scientists are seeing. Oh, they have the propensity for this, so that may happen. But it doesn't mean it's going to happen because we may balance that karma prior to that situation manifesting. We may have said, I want to go into embodiment. I have a lot of karma to balance. I want to take on whatever situation I may need to take on. And in our genes lies that karmic code which has to be resolved. We were never a proponent of messing with the genetic code because therein lies one's karma. You can see how it took thousands of years for events to play out when there's the mixing the energy of the sons of light with the sons of darkness, and also with the soulless carbon copies and clones created by the fallen ones that we have been talking about. So this is a good place to stop for now. Don't miss our next episode where we will discover what happened to the biblical Lucifer and Satan and what this means for us today. We'll be diving deep into the hidden story of their final judgment and explain the karmic wave that's now sweeping our world. Thank you for listening to Spiritual Deep Dives. If you like this content, please like and subscribe to our podcast. We'll catch you in the next episode.